let's look at this graphic. Lamar now, a lot of he's even said this, he kind of discounts his early games because he was so much younger. The last 3 playoff games versus his first 4, now you might say, well, why is that even relevant?
No,
well, the
fair.
first 4 happened 4 years ago, or 4 or more years ago. This is like the first 4 end in 2021, which was the 2020 season.
Yeah.
So that's early in his career. We know he wasn't an elite passer at this time. I think he is this year. And now you look at the last 2 years, and he's 2-1. The passer rating is very good. Completion percentage, 5 TDs. Actually, it's 7 total touchdowns and 2 total turnovers because he ran for 2. And the bad game, or mediocre, whatever you want to call it, was against the Chiefs, the best team in the league. So look, you're not going to play great every single playoff game, but I do think like the antsiness, whatever, if nerves you thought I thought it was more, didn't have the great passing ability and teams capitalized on that. But whatever the case, I think this showed he looked just like he did in the regular season.
Well, that's to me.
Just like him.
That to me, so I understand the graphic, and I think it's fair to do a line of demarcation of, the first 3 years of his career, then 2 years missed the playoffs, so that's gone. So basically, the first 3 years of his career versus last 2 years, that's totally fair. To me, I look at those games as the Texans game. He was fine in the first half, amazing in the second half. Chiefs game, I thought he was bad start to finish. But yesterday was the first playoff game of his career, Saturday. It was good start to finish.
No question.
You know what and so like it was I don't really care what the numbers are compared to the Texans game. That was the best playoff game of his career. To me, without a doubt. And the point you made at the end was to me the most important one, which is he looked and played like a regular season game. And in the regular season, he's as good as just about any player we've ever seen. Like the read option stuff, him keeping the ball.
That part.
We'll go.
That part.
Yeah.
That part for me, the way that they approach this game.
Yes.
Like he talked about earlier in the week, being anxious, having been anxious in games like this. And it was like Todd Monken and staff heard that, started the game off saying, you know what, we're going to design runs so that what Mike Tomlin said, Lamar's unique talent is on full display. So he doesn't have to feel like the pressure of being a pocket guy, throwing and being this great passer in the postseason, which is when we've typically seen him kind of taper off a little bit. What they did from a game planning standpoint was calming. Like Lamar, you got Derrick Henry, read option. The Steelers played right into it because they were trying to take away Derrick Henry, and they just let Lamar continue to run. And it was like, as long as you're doing what you do best, it's like, oh, man, this is easy. This is what I do. Now, the rest of the game is like, I'm comfortable. I'm in full control. I'm going to hit guys wide open. I'm not going to overthrow guys. I'm not going to miss guys. Lamar was fantastic. And to your point, I agree with what you're saying. He looked the exact same level of comfort.
That's the first playoff game of his career.
Yes.
He has looked from the opening snap like it was just a regular season game.
And that's why I say the game plan of how they approach that game, I think it mattered. And if they can find whatever it is that they need to do this next week, because what we've typically seen is against the
elite
Joe Burrow
quarterbacks, they try to make it a passing contest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
okay, we don't have to go back and have this whole conversation about Lamar Jackson passing and all of that. So I'm going to say something that's going to, I think a lot of people will probably misunderstand what I'm going to say, but I'm going to try my best to explain it because I mean it in a positive way. I said this before that Lamar Jackson there's an innocence to him. There's a lightness to him. He's very like childlike, and again, I mean that in the most positive way you could possibly say that. And unfortunately, the only other word that I can think of, people automatically take it as a negative, immature, because it often is used as a negative. You're so immature. You need to mature, this or that. But Lamar has an immaturity to him, and again, I'm saying this in a positive way, in such a lightness to him that I can see him being more susceptible to this, because even at the end of this game, the way how he verbalized, how this game went, and they're like talking there, they're like, how is it to watch Derrick Henry? And he's like, did you ever see the movie Cars? He's like Lightning McQueen, or whatever the name of the Cars character. He was referring to like a Pixar movie. And I loved it. That was awesome. Like it's really cool. It's why, it's so easy to root for Lamar. Like he obviously, just the way his mind works, the brain works, like he is definitely a little bit more immature in a positive way, that I think, the team around him does need to support that. They need to understand, like, this is one of those things where they have an absolute beast, a monster. Like, his body is more ferocious than just where his mind is at in a lot of ways. And it's like, you got to understand, how can we put Lamar in a position to succeed? And that's why I don't put it on Lamar. I don't say that he's mentally weak, or that this or that, or he can't handle the big moment. Like, I don't give credit to any of that, because I think all of these quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, etc., they all, for the most part, these guys are kids. They seriously are kids, and they get so successful and get so much money that it actually really does slow down the development of them. They do. It's a real thing that happens. They always talk about child actors, they stop maturing the moment they get famous. So if you get famous when you're 12, it's like you're pretty much 12 from here on out, and it's a real thing that happens. And it's a thing that happens with athletes that I think it's very under discussed. And so, like, you have these kids, and that's why eventually when they finally get married and they have kids in themselves, like, it can definitely help, accelerate that process of them maturing and growing. It's kind of what Colin has talked about, why he's kind of called out Aaron Rodgers, saying that he's, like, been single and all this. And I don't think you have to be married and have kids in order to mature. There's plenty of people who aren't married or don't have kids and all of that and are very mature. But your coach, your team, they become your family. Your coaches become your parents, like, father figures, just parental figures in general. Like, you have endless athletes, from the all-time greats to the just average Joe. So the all-time greats who already have parents in their lives, it's just a very intimate process. You're spending an insane amount of time. And I don't feel that the Ravens did a good enough job to ever support Lamar Jackson. And it's why some people always get mad at me when I bring up Mahomes and Reed. It's like, Reed has done an undeniably brilliant job of supporting Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs through his process. And that's why I always say, they leave Lamar Jackson on an island. They leave him on an island so often in these said playoff games. And it's just like, when you support him, and for some reason people take that as such a negative, like, oh, he needs support, he needs help, he needs Derrick Henry, he needs to be babied. And it's like, all of these quarterbacks do. Every single one of them. You're asking Lamar Jackson to be a man at like 24, 23 on the field in the NFL, and it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's just not the way it works. There's a reason why these young guys, these young quarterbacks in basketball, baseball, football, soccer, they're not winning rings when they're 22. It just doesn't happen unless they go to a team that already has that dude who's already 26, 27, 28, whatever it be. It takes time. It takes time. And so, yeah, that's why I've always blamed the Ravens for the lack of playoff success, not Lamar individually. Does Lamar have some of the blame? Of course. He is not, he's not 100%, unblameable in these types of situations. But the Ravens, I've read on this, they need to do a better job. And the more I listen to Lamar talk, the more I see him play, the more that becomes even more clear to me. Again, when he references cars in that press conference, or even when they say, like, how do you feel about this? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I can't explain it. And it's just the way his mind works. His mind works in such a more innocent way, which I think is incredibly endearing and incredibly positive. Again, it's something that I really appreciate, and it's why players love him and want to be around him, because they see it and know it and feel it as well. But it is also something that the Ravens do need to understand. Okay, this is how we kind of have to approach our games. Like, Lamar Jackson is he is one of the greatest players we've ever seen, and it's up to us to figure out how to harness that. It's up to us to figure out how to unleash that. Just like Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs had to do for Mahomes. Just like Bill Belichick had to do for Tom Brady. I mean, again, it's every franchise, every coach, every quarterback. It's not unique just to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. And I will say that is what helps someone like a Mahomes out or Tom Brady, is that they were clearly incredibly mature and wise beyond their years at a very early age. That much is very clear. And any of the other quarterbacks that kind of, get stuck a little bit, you can see some of the immaturity. And again, immature, the word immature can mean so many different ways, can mean different things in different contexts. And sometimes it can be absolutely a negative, like you're so immature, you're this, that. And I just want to be very clear in this context, I don't mean it in that way. I really don't. It's just a maturing, a growing up process. LeBron James is also a perfect example of this, just insanely mature. The fact that this guy had been famous since he was like 14 years old and like never got in trouble, like never had issues. I mean, like, are you kidding me? The guy was given the world at 18 and never slipped. Say what you will about LeBron. He's made some weird comments, whatever, but like it could have gone very wrong for LeBron. It could have gone very wrong. And, by all accounts, he's a great person, great father, great family guy, and has, taken care of it. And I respect that. I really do. And on a little bit more of the opposite end, you have other players that get in trouble all the time, They're immature, whether because of their personality, their attitude, whatever it may be, their upbringing. And then you have someone like Lamar who brings a ton of lightness, a ton of, childlike quality to himself and to his game. But what's so awesome is that he then doesn't get in trouble. He talked about his mama. He's literally like, my mama told me this, and she yelled at me. Like, that is who Lamar is. And again, that's why I love the guy. Like, seriously, that's why it's like you're rooting for him, because you were kind of like, man, I want to see that guy get it all. I want to see that guy, achieve his dreams. Like, he is a kid. He is a kid in a grown man's body. That is what it is. And again, I just want to keep emphasizing this. I mean this in the most positive, complimentary way. I think it's one of Lamar's superpowers, honestly. I really, really do. And I do think that he's done a lot of maturing and growing up in this process. And you could see it on his play on the field, off the field, in press conferences, interviews, etc. And as I get something in my eye, that I think that, it really is just ultimately up to the Ravens to create the most supportive environment to unlock Lamar's potential. So hopefully that made sense. Tried my best to explain what I'm thinking, but, we'll see how this one lands, again, as something completely goes in my eye. But let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.